If you look at the technocracy and the writing about technocracy, so many of us describe we're moving from whatever systems we use now to a technocracy. In a technocracy, they view, you have two different visions of the world. My vision of the world is that humans are sovereign individuals whose freedom comes by divine authority. That is what the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution all revolve around. The image of a sovereign individual as someone who is free by divine authority. In the vision of technocracy, a human is a natural resource like a oil deposit and to be used as such. So they're not a sovereign individual, they're labor, and they are either more efficient or less efficient than a robot at different functions. In other words, what I'm saying is Mr. Global views the human race like livestock, not someone with which they share empathy, and they don't view us as the same species as them. And in fact, with a lot of the biotechnology, they figure they're going to live much longer lives than we do and live very differently than we do. So there's been a real, one of the challenges with the secrecy, as one group becomes more and more technologically advanced, they separate culturally, legally, financially from all the other groups. In other words, they have literally broken away and created a separate civilization. They don't think of themselves as part of our civilization anymore.
And who is they?
Well, that's the great mystery, and that's why I call this group Mr. Global. And my personal experiences with many different people in that group and factions, but ultimately, I can't tell you who really controls. What I will tell you is the planet is run by force. And so ultimately the question is, who is the most powerful gun? And that comes down to space. Who has the most powerful space presence, space weapons, as well as who controls the sea lanes? So traditionally, control behind the reserve currency came from control of the sea lanes. But then as we've moved into space, it's now become control of both the sea lanes and the satellite lanes. And the question is, who controls what and who has what weapons? One of the reasons you've seen a very interesting discussion in the United States for the last 2 years is Trump has been very verbal about Space Force and what is possible in space, and he'll make these allusions to our magical weapons in space, at which point the generals look at him very disapproving, like, don't talk about that. So the answer is, we don't know. We don't know. What we do know is part of the competition right now between China and America is that the player who has the most dominant position in space has the power to control the whole planet. So the Chinese have a system called the social credit system, and they're very much tying their financial transactions and different abilities to travel and do other things to your behavior. And, we've seen different TV shows talk about these kinds of systems. But you're talking about a world where, and we see it in China, where most people are under 24/7 surveillance, and then their financial incentives and their financial powers relate to how well behaved they are. And I would describe it essentially as a slavery system, because there's no personal freedom. So to a certain extent, what technocracy will do is move us to a similar kind of system as the Chinese social credit system.
Where if you misbehave, you can be punished.
Right, so in theory, you have to get a certain kind of job to make a certain kind of money. In the current system, in the new system, you have to work for a certain kind of company and achieve a certain kind of prominence to be allowed to move more than 10 miles from your home, or to be allowed to fly. So there'll be a pecking order that relates to your freedoms to either travel or roam, or how much sort of access you have to resources. So how much money you can make. But remember, you're going into a system where if they believe they can automate everything with robotic software and AI, it's going to be that much harder for you to share in the benefits and the wealth of the system because the central group can extract so much more. In other words, they have a one-way mirror. They can see everything you do. You can't even see who they are.
Yeah. Okay.
What's very important to understand about what is happening is that the majority of people have been, if we're talking about a transhumanist system or, in short, a slavery system, most of us have been supporting it and financing it and building it. So when I look at all the big pharma executives, why are they building a system where their own children or grandchildren will be slaves? Why are the central banks doing it? Why did they think, there's a theory in America for many years among the sort of money classes that if I make enough money, I can get a waiver, I can get out of it, I can eat organic food, not eat the GMOs, and my grandkids, won't have to take vaccines. But if you look at who's implementing all these different activities, we're building our own slavery system, and that means we have the power to stop. In other words, we don't have to finance the companies that are doing this. We don't have to work for the companies that are doing this. And in fact, we don't even have to pay our taxes because the government is breaking all the laws related to financial management. We have the ability to hold them accountable. So we're building the prison and we're financing the prison, and that gives us the power to stop. And that's why it's so important that we see where the system is going. There will be no exceptions.
So what is the solution?
Solution is, number one, bring transparency to what's happening, understand where the system is going, and then stop building it. If you work for Big Pharma and you're building this, stop. Go find something else to do, like build local fresh food systems so you will have food. So stop financing it. Begin the conversation of where this is going, and more importantly, where we want to go. Because we're going to have to rebuild the economy bottom up if we don't want to be highly centralized. So this comes down to, I call it coming clean. Once upon a time, I was in Washington. I was writing a check on my JP Chase private banking account. And in the meantime, I was engaged in 12 different tracks of litigation, litigating with the people who are trying to engineer the housing bubble. I was trying to stop the housing bubble from happening. And I was writing a check on my JP Chase personal banking account. I realized, why am I banking at the bank that's doing this criminality, that's destroying communities, that's doing predatory lending? And I said, I need to come clean. I need to stop banking there. So, if tomorrow everybody woke up in America and stopped banking at JP Chase and said, something, y'all are criminals, we want nothing to do with you, we're out, and went to a local credit union or community bank, it would be a revolution. It would be a total revolution. If 20 women turned to big pharma executives and said, something, you're disgusting, no sex, bye, out the door, be a revolution. So we have the power to change this, but we're all going to have to come clean because almost all of us are complicit in implementing this. It's not them, it's us. The solution is for every one of us to come clean. You're either for the transhumanist slavery system or you're for a human system. But if you're for a human system, then you're going to have to find a way to make money, and engage socially in a human system and stop building a transhuman system. Well, the first thing you have to see is you have to get a good map. In other words, you can't navigate this unless you can see the transhumanist system that is being built and who's building it. But if you're involved with, so let's go back to the pillars. Okay? Don't help the military build Operation Warp Speed. Okay? Don't help the tech guys figure out how to inject nanoparticles into your body and hook them up to the cloud. Don't help big pharma, make injections which are poisoning American children to death. Don't help big ag grow GMO food that is poisoning America to death. Don't help the government institute corrupt, sort of health crisis regulations that are really disaster capitalism and making the private equity guys and the billionaires rich, and on and on and on. But if you, I'll just be blunt, get the state of our currencies and read it, and you'll know who's doing this. I mean, it's pretty obvious who's doing this.